we've also heard Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov saying that we are not interested in Ukraine. We annexed the Russian-speaking regions, and that's enough for us. We don't want to go further. He even argued that why would we want to capture a territory whose population hates us? And that makes some sense. And we also heard the Russian president saying that we are more interested in Eurasia, and they recognize the Taliban government in Afghanistan, which is a sign that maybe what he's saying, he really means it. So they are looking eastward. They are not even looking westward. And still, there is so much upheaval in the Western Europe about the Russian posturing.
Yeah, that's true, and therefore it makes me really wonder and why we come up to this assessment and saying, okay, Russia has a big interest in order to have their influence in Western Europe. You know, in our societies and in the political arena and in the media arena, it's always said that we have disinformation campaigns, we have attempts by Russia or let's say middlemen, whoever, to destabilize our democracies. That's the way how things are now perceived, and therefore people are really in the political area are really let's say on it and say, okay, we don't want to buy this. So now, before we had really interesting, let's say, normal relationships with Russia, specifically on the economic area. But since there was the big attack on the pipeline in the Baltic Sea, the Nord Stream pipeline, and since then things have changed. And Europe has declared, European Union and some of the nations have declared, no, we want to get rid of the Russian dependence on the gas and oil. But it still works. You know, it's still there are oil. What I read, there are still a deliverance of oil and so on. So we need to find, let's say, a solution how we can manage that, especially in Europe.
Yes, and you know, when President Trump said that the Indians must stop buying oil from Russia because that is fueling the Ukrainian war, and the Indian response was the Europeans are doing the same. So it should be, a fair game, and the Europeans are continuing to do that. The Chinese are buying Russian oil. The Europeans are just 2 months ago. The president of European Union was in China negotiating the trade deal. They are having very good relations with the Chinese, and the Chinese are selling their goods in Europe about $300 billion. That's the volume of the trade, the Chinese goods that the Europeans are buying. So it's not a very simple story. It's pretty complex, multi-layered. How do you see the Russian positioning themselves in the midst of all this? And let's not forget the Chinese said that we don't want to see Russia losing the war.
Yeah, there are very interesting signals. What I learned that the Chinese foreign minister went to Europe and had a talk to the representative of, let's say, foreign policy, Mrs. Callas, and he said, well, I cannot quote him, but the idea was, we don't mind that the war is going on because it keeps us the American away in their area of interest. You know, we're talking about Taiwan. That was his statement. And I was really surprised hearing this because China always behaved in a very moderate way. They didn't want to fuel in, they didn't want to tune up all this problem. They said, we have to find a solution. Of course, since the whole global situation has changed, China and Russia have a closer relationship than ever. And I don't know if this was smart because in old American presidents, maybe it was Nixon, they said, we should never allow that China and Russia should come so close. And what happened now? They're even closer, and we have to take this into consideration. So, but no, I think also what I learned that is China has also interests in Ukraine. So it's not so easy to say, okay, we like that but it gives them a little bit a breath before something in their area might get a dynamic nobody wants. And this is the big elephant in the room. We know it's always about the South China Sea, the Taiwan issue, and so on. That's the case.
Yes, but well, I'm wondering what is the European interest in becoming the frontliner of the Americans when it comes to South China Sea? You are having wonderful trade relations with China. You don't have any threat from the Chinese. So why would you be want to part of what the Americans are doing in the South China Sea? I mean, because as a member of NATO, you have some obligations.
To be honest, I don't see this because the whole idea I understood since President Obama in 2012 when he talked about the pivot to Asia, and he mentioned more or less, okay, we have to take care about the Asian area, and you Europeans, you'd have to take care of your own. So now, and President Trump is enforcing this as we see the way, but it's what we see. It's a kind of, well, this and that, you know. Sometime he said, okay, I want to get out. Let's say I don't want to do anything with Ukraine and Europe and Russia. That's their issue. It was not my war, that he always says. But on the other hand, then he said, no, I will support this with weapons. So it's not really clear. On the other hand, Europe has to understand, or we have to understand, yeah, we have to deal with our own. And that is now coming back to your remark, why Europe says, okay, we have to put more emphasis on our own defense if you want to defend our European nation.
When they are asking you to take care of yourself, you can ask them to take care of themselves. And as far as the Ukrainian question, the Russian are saying that Zelensky is an American puppet who was surgically installed there. So things can be sorted out. What is the American leverage? What are they giving you?
You mean to the Europeans?
To the Europeans, of course.
Well, first of all, when we're talking about NATO, and even if they like it or not, but the Americans are still part of NATO. Sometime when you are in Washington and you talk about NATO, what I heard, it's always that NATO is across the ocean. So it's Europe, that's NATO. No, they are also part, and they have signed the treaty where they guarantee when there's any attack on the NATO territory that they will be part of the defense in whatever they want to do that. And they reaffirmed that recently, saying, okay, that when there are any violation of the NATO airspace and so on, the Americans will be there. And that is important for the smaller countries like Estonia, like Latvia and Lithuania, because if they don't have this guarantee, I think they feel really alone. That doesn't mean that other NATO nations are supporting them, but the main bulk is, and we know that because the biggest military in the world, that's the Americans. So therefore, the Americans, they will not shy away. Remember, there was the NATO summit not a long time ago where everybody was nervous. How will Donald Trump react? Will he say, okay, I will diminish my support or not? You know, and that is always at the moment what I perceive is a kind of not danger, but it's insecure. You never know how does he mean that what he's talking, but we have to look into the treaties. So what is signed, and if we keep on that.
Just 2 days ago, we read in the newspaper that that President Trump advised the Europeans to shoot down the the Russian jets if they violate their airspace. They have military bases in Europe. Why don't they do it for you? They're asking you to do that.
Yeah, because
they're part of the alliance. They are an equal signatory of the treaty. They could have done it themselves.
Well, you know, they know that the Europeans, there are some countries which take part at the NATO air defense pillar with aircraft. So he said, why can't you can't do that? Why not? let's say we saw recently the drones, they flew into Poland, and it was the Netherlands who supported Poland with their aircrafts in order to shoot down some of the drones. So that is what they mean. And we have a kind of air policing, what we call this. That means that other NATO nations are in the area in order to protect the airspace of the NATO. And when you come into the situation, but who will do this? Because to really to shoot down and to make an escalation, to shoot down Russian aircraft, that will be a very significant change. And Russia, what I read, has already also said, if we will do this, this is a declaration of war. So are we risking this? But you see why it's very tense. You know, it's a lot of words going on, but in order to pull the trigger when you're in the situation, well, that is something different.
Is the level of trust diminishing between Europe and the United States? Or is Europe becoming or feeling more insecure despite the treaty and the nuclear umbrella which the Americans provide?
I think it's not, no, it's not yet that the trust is lost, but we are concerned of what the Trump administration is conveying. So that's the point. And you can only say, okay, we will lose trust when they change the treaties, when they pull out officially of some activities. And personally, I don't see that. And therefore, we have always in this conflict and in this situation to differentiate what people are saying, even if they are in the highest position, and what is really done on the area. Well, when you have signed treaties where you have to fulfill your mandates and so on. And that's something different.